ReleaseWire helps businesses connect with interested journalists and bloggers. Check out the link in the description to save 25% on your first press release.
Admiral, radar shows that we have liberals approaching at 3 o'clock, and libertarians at 9 o'clock, and conservatives at 6 o'clock. They're coming from every angle, every viewpoint. Oh, it's Political Radar with your hosts, Rhonda and Elliot.
Hey, all you political junkies, welcome to Political Radar, the best unscripted and uncensored political talk you will hear all day long. And we are into episode 42 with Paul Linzmeyer. Welcome.
Thank you.
And my understanding is 42 is the answer to everything.
Absolutely. Just from the Hitchhiker's Guide, 42 is the answer.
So this is good.
Okay.
And we have the answers today. That's awesome.
Excellent.
So today we are talking about something really visionary, very forward-thinking, something really interesting for Green Bay to have, I think. Something that has started in the last year as a proposal, and then there was some money put towards it. It's the Farmerie Project. There's a little bit of money that was given to the Farmerie. What was it, like $50,000?
Right. We got a grant from Wells Fargo. Sorry to bring that up, but... for $50,000.
But they won an award.
It was through the mayor's office. So.
Yeah. So it was the mayor's like throughout the country, right? They had submitted a proposal and decided that this was a pretty feasible project to back.
Right.
And that's the Farmerie Project, which was an armory. And this is located in East Green Bay, kind of downtown area.
Yes, and right behind NeighborWorks on the corner of Chicago and Jackson.
And this was a bottling plant originally, and then it went into a facility, I think it was like something downtown by Hagemeister burned, and then the National Guard moved into it, and then it was an armory, which is why we have the name Farmerie now.
Right.
Where we're at.
Interesting enough, in the 50s and 60s, when I was growing up, my aunt lived right on the other side of the alley from the old armory, and I remember it well because you have a lot of soldiers and a lot of big equipment, and a young boy is always interested in that kind of thing. So turning into the Farmerie for more peaceful purposes kind of seems a little ironic.
So whose idea was that, and how did that start?
So let me give you a little bit of history of why I'm even in this project. So I ran companies in San Francisco, Chicago, Denver, and Green Bay for about 35 years using sustainability principles, which means sustainability is really not about the environment. It's about sort of the intersection of the environment, the economy, and society. And one of the things early on I recognized is that when I moved to Green Bay, I actually took over a company with 200 employees and had to buy our own health insurance for the first time. And that was 22 years ago. And I just recognized that we're screwed because health insurance for a small company is a losing proposition all the way around. So I decided that I'm going to see if I can kind of game the system and actually try to make my employees healthy. And so we brought in a free clinic on site for our 200 employees and their families. And lo and behold, we started getting much healthier because our employees had a relationship with healthcare in a kind of a new way. And one of the things we recognized right away is that our diet is killing us. And really, when you think about it, big food is has been being subsidized by for the last 40 plus years by the Farm Bill, and
this is where we get political. This is where the political
right
angle is involving this issue.
Right, and if you remember. When President Obama became president, and Michelle Obama came out with kind of this healthy food initiative, they put the garden into the White House lawn, but they really never kept their promise, to do something about big food, and that's really disappointing. And neither has anybody else. Big Food has lobbyists, and they have a huge carbon footprint. So not only are they growing food that's killing us, but they're killing the environment to boot. And part of my background is in 2008, I was named to be a U.S. delegate to the OECD's Sustainable Manufacturing Eco Innovation Committee, and I was able to travel the world looking at communities and how they were dealing with things like all sorts of sustainable ideas, but food and food waste were all issues that needed to be dealt with. And I also was the industry chair of the Wisconsin Governor's Global Warming Task Force in 2006 and 2007, and I'm very well aware of what are the contributions to climate change from big food. Big food actually is worse than transportation as climate change. So
when you're talking about big food, what is that?
Okay, that's a great question, and because people really don't know. Big food is organizations like Monsanto who are pushing genetically modified food onto us. It's about it's like Tyson Foods and other food companies who are putting antibiotics in beef and poultry. It's the huge growers of vegetables that are grown using pesticides and all sorts of other things that are very harmful for us. So lo and behold, in January 2011, one of the things my wife and I laugh about, I was saved from being county executive by getting diagnosed with a very serious case of rectal cancer. And I, for the first time, was a consumer of healthcare services. And the reason I lived was because I took sort of the mind, body, spirit approach, and I increased my meditation. I ate all sorts of different foods, but I ate healthy foods for most of my life. So when I recovered, I went to work as sustainability leader at ThedaCare, which is a large healthcare organization in Northeast. It's the largest employer in Northeast Wisconsin with 8,000 employees. And one of the things I recognize is that healthcare is really all about positive healthcare outcomes, not about positive health outcomes. And that's really unfortunate. And so my work was really to try to change that. Doing a lot of the same things I did as a business leader, where I was trying to deal with health issues from a more systemic perspective. And so I tried to buy, for our 7 hospitals, I tried to buy locally, organically grown food. And at our busiest, at our highest impact, we were able to get about 7% of our food locally grown, and that was only in season. Now and that was only for 2 hospitals. That is really disappointing.
That's very disappointing.
So the market is there, and if you would talk to other healthcare leaders, they want to grow, they want to get food that is organic, healthy, and if you talk to a lot of K-12s. The farm to school program is really big, and
what was their arguments for that? Like, what were the reasons why this is the amount you could get in there? That's really low percentage.
The reason is the growers, God bless them, they're awesome people, but I don't think they really know how to grow for the institutional market. They're used to growing for CSAs, communities for agriculture, or farmers markets, but when you're growing for institutions, you really have to focus in on less diversity of product and maybe specializing in one product or maybe 2, because we have something called GAP certification, which is Good Agricultural Practices, and you get certified by crop. And so as I was going around trying to figure out the problem, the solution was to grow growers. So I met up with some people like Jimmy Pandel and others, and we found the Armory, we said, this is perfect. We wanted a place to be able to grow growers. But the critical thing is we needed to have a food system that was self-sustaining. So we decided to start a not-for-profit called the Farmery. And what the work is we want to grow enough produce to sustain ourselves, and the produce has to be tasty, it has to be nutritious, and it has to be affordable. Well, to do that indoors requires some really specific skill sets. So we decided to team up with Will Allen from Growing Power down in Milwaukee and Chicago, and most people at least have heard of Will Allen. He's known internationally as probably the guru of aquaponics. And aquaponics is, there's hydroponics and aquaponics, and most often hydroponics has non-farm inputs, so they're petrochemicals to provide nutrition for the produce. In my mind, that's a little bit problematic because, oftentimes you get a hydroponic tomato and you notice it doesn't taste as good as the one you grew in your backyard. And while it's better than shipping in from California with lots of pesticides, hydroponics is a transition to something better. Then there's aquaponics, which is where you have fish and the fish effluent or fish poop waste actually provides the nutrition for the plants. But that still isn't as good because the premier product is stuff that is grown in soil. So ours is a hybrid that Will Allen has tested and tried, and it's been working for the last 20, 25 years. And he uses perch instead of tilapia, and the reason why perch is better than tilapia, tilapia. Well, obviously, we're in Wisconsin, and perch is very popular, and the Great Lakes don't give us the perch anymore. We mostly have to ship it in from somewhere else. The price per pound is around $12 to $15 a pound, where tilapia is $4 to $5 a pound. But the key difference is that perch are grown in cold water, where tilapia have to be in warmer water, and produce really likes cold water. So the exciting part about that is we decided to use this aquaponic system, but do it in a vertical. So instead of having 10,000 square feet of plantings, we have 5 layers of 10,000 square feet. And the other real exciting thing is that we can harvest the crop every 16 to 18 days. So we know that from a business perspective, this is a very viable situation. However, having perch really gave us a quandary that we were almost not sure we could figure out. But thanks to UW Milwaukee Freshwater Institute in UW Green Bay and NWTC, we are now going to have the first of its kind perch fish hatchery in the world. And so the exciting thing is, besides growing growers, because we see that over time we could have some fairly substantial entrepreneurs setting up food systems in Brown County. But we can also grow fish scientists, fish technicians, because the Farmery concept can be replicated in any community in the country and probably the world. And so what we're really looking at is a system different from big agriculture. And the really exciting thing is that this election is really telling to me. Besides the fact that you have two of the most probably unpopular people, running, but you have a lot of people who feel marginalized, who feel afraid, who feel left out. And I think one of the things is, like, for example, in climate change, if you try to talk about climate change, everybody thinks about polar bears and ice caps, and what does that mean to me? So if you change the conversation from climate change to food, and you start thinking about food in a different way, where does it come from? Is it healthy and nutritious? If you think about putting a hoop house, a hoop house, which is just what it sounds, it's a place to grow vegetables. It can be 20 feet long, and you can put one in every school. And who's the best salespeople in the world? 5 to 10-year-olds. They come home and talk to their parents and talk to the neighbors and start talking about food and how they grew it and how they ate it and how it tastes good. It's interesting. I grow everything organically, and my neighbor, we have neighbor kids all the time because they chum with my grandkids. And the one neighbor kid said, I don't like tomatoes. I said, well, you never tried this tomato. And he trusts me, and so he tried one. He says, boy, that is really good. It tastes like candy. I said, it does, because when you grow it in soil, the whole biology or microbiology of soil is really what adds the texture and the taste and the nutrition. And so, so the fish effluent helps things grow. But it's the combination of soil with worm castings and compost. And so the other thing that's really interesting is we're experimenting to take food and organic waste. We're working with Brown County right now to put together a model so that we can take organic and food waste out of the landfill, which creates a lot of methane, which affects climate change, and actually turn it into a high-grade compost that can be used on farm fields instead of the petrochemicals that they're hauling in. Now, the Monsantos of the world are not going to like us because we're taking something, instead of doing a cradle-to-grave approach, we're taking a cradle-to-cradle approach, which is really unique. And what I think is going to happen that's really interesting, going back to the elections, we're going to engage people in differently than they've been engaged before. And I'm hoping this will rekindle the small d democratic dialogue that is so missing in this country today. And I think, I look at, I was in elementary school and high school when we had the race to the moon. And you start thinking, if we could have leadership like we had then, I don't know if you remember in the early 1960s, we could barely shoot a rocket into the ocean, much less think about going to the moon. And yet we did. We went to the moon, and we had some of the best innovation that we've ever had. And I think if this project really is successful, we're going to start looking at ways of not only growing food differently, but having a political discussion that's much more meaningful than the political discussion we have today.
So this is actually, let's make sure people that are listening understand. So to make this successful, and so people realize this is a project that was proposed, definitely has interest, because I remember coming to it in February, and you could not find a place to even stand in that building. There were so many people there. You had to park 4 blocks away just to get in the building. So the interest is there. The curiosity is there. What people need to know now is what to do next.
Right.
So this project is really just, it's birthed, correct? I mean, this is not a full functioning system right now. We need to talk about how we get there and how to make this successful. So some details about the Farmerie. NeighborWorks and the Greater Green Bay Basic Needs Giving Partnership came together to get this off the ground, correct?
Right. So, thanks for kind of bringing it full circle. So we have a prototype in place of the system that we want to grow. So NeighborWorks, Noel Halverson, who's the executive director of NeighborWorks, is a very forward-thinking person. And when we started talking about this project, it was kind of like, we got to be behind this. And if you look at that building, it's solid concrete, but it's really dilapidated. And if it went too much longer, it'd be just another building you'd have to spend a whole bunch of money tearing down because everything's falling apart. So we can actually take a building in a food desert, and what a food desert means is that access to affordable, healthy food is not there because there are no grocery stores nearby. So in a food desert, we can take a dilapidated building that's close to 100 years old and turn it into something, which I think is really the definition of sustainability, where you reuse, recycle, repurpose, and it's in a place where there's a lot of poverty, and once it opens, we'll have access to it for the neighbors, for school kids, and it'll be really a center of food excellence where we're really learning a lot about things.
But this project needs some support, some financial support, correct?
Right, and so
So before we loop into that, though,
Yeah.
Half of our audience are, I'm not going to say Trump supporters, but they're conservative business people, Republicans.
Right.
And I think that I love all the things you're doing, with sustainability and entrepreneurism, and I feel like we're sort of like-minded that way. But I'm going to try to be devil's advocate a little bit on just a couple of things. So when you're talking about big food, explain to a conservative why that's not better. When I think about business, I think about Apple, I think about Google, I think about big car companies, even though they got bailed out, and that there's an efficiency. There's an efficiency of scale that they get that local growing can't give you. So, can you just briefly and
Sure.
You have like a depth of knowledge that is probably a little bit overwhelming, but briefly.
So, thanks, Elliot. I think that's a great perspective. And first of all, I run companies for close to 40 years, and I understand the challenges and the need for efficiency. I'm a lean expert, and I also was chair of the Green Bay Chamber of Commerce, which is a fairly conservative business organization. So I know what I speak. I've been an entrepreneur, and so the problem with big food is that their product is unhealthy. It's very expensive, and if they were actually in a free market economy, they wouldn't be here, because they're not paying the cost of the damage that they're doing not only to us as people who consume it, but to the environment. And the environment is real, and changes in the environment are real, and they're causing problems.
So are you fighting an uphill battle then?
I don't think so, because I think one of the problems is that locally grown food was not we weren't really able to grow it efficiently and cost effectively, and to me that's a problem. We ended up paying more for our locally grown food than we did for the other food, and as we all know, Americans are addicted to cheap food and cheap pretty much everything, and but if the product that you're buying is hurting you, that's a problem. So if what we're proposing is that our system can grow healthy, tasty, nutritious, affordable food that can compete with the big guys, guess what? They're going to probably change. And they're going to go in our direction. As a matter of fact, some of them are already changing. But sometimes it takes a real movement to make that change happen. And what I'm suggesting is that our work is creating a movement that actually we're joining a movement, because in other areas of the country, this is already a very prevalent thing.
Well, in other areas of the world, they're not even accepting food like this, correct? They're banning it.
Exactly. So if you look at, for example, our poultry is not allowed to be shipped to Asia and in some countries in Europe. So they can actually grow it the right way, But part of the reason why we have so much antibiotics in poultry, for example, is people like white meat. I mean, we've been taught to like white meat, and so if you like white meat, then we'll grow chickens with a lot of white meat, and you grow them all together, and that's what creates issues. So I think it's time for food companies to be responsible for their actions, and unfortunately, legislation has allowed them to get away, quite frankly, with murder, and that's really a problem.
And I know, like we're just some local Green Bay guys for the most part. But, how do we change that mentality in Washington? Because it's very popular to have farm bills. It's very, because they put this picture out there of the family farm. And to the contrary, I feel like they're subsidizing big business.
Right. So, the system is jobbed against us. And, the lobbyists have all the control and the money. So how you do it is you start a grassroots movement like we're starting, and you actually prove it can work. And you invite anybody in to come and participate. So
because really you're doing the public an education. I mean, you're giving them education to make them realize that this is possible. You can have this in your community.
Rhonda, and I think that's really the critical component here is we could have done this as a for-profit venture. Without a question.
Well, you're a service, not a business necessarily, right?
Well, that's what we are. We're a community service. And what we're doing is through the collaboration with all these very unique partners, we're saying that we're going to create jobs that are going to be high-paying jobs. These aquaponic and hoop house entrepreneurs that we're talking about are not going to be second and third job type of things. They're going to have employees. And as a matter of fact, we're actually taking targeted populations like veterans with post-traumatic stress, and we're going to be teaching them a skill. And one thing that research has shown is that people with post-traumatic stress, and it's not just veterans, but there's a whole lot of people they're finding out that have that from traumatic events, that growing things fills that hole in their psyche. And that's a real critical piece. So they not only get healthy, but then they can go to work for these entrepreneurs. So we're looking at vertical farming that is huge. And one of the partnerships we're talking about possibly is working with Brown County. They just purchased some land and buildings next to their transfer station, and they have from their landfill they have methane that they're flaring off right now. But what they're willing to do is actually pipe that methane into their buildings, and we can turn those buildings into greenhouses for our entrepreneurs. I mean, guess what? You just created some real high-end jobs, and that's really exciting.
And I think what's really important to note as well, and I know we talk about this a lot, is we have a city that we need to keep, people need to be coming here. We need to retain, we need to attract people to come and want to invest and be in our community. And I think this is something that the average person, that's maybe a young professional, they're looking for things like this. This is attractive to them. This isn't just something to, have a nice urban farm. This is literally a sustainability issue for our city that we need to address as well.
Absolutely. And I think when I moved back here in 1994, and I was heading a company as president of the company, and I started getting about in the community, I started finding out that, Northeast Wisconsin is sort of irrelevant to most of the rest of the state. And so we decided to change that. And I started an organization called the Employers Workforce Development Network to start companies of choice and communities of choice. And out of that came the young professionals that we handed off to the Chamber in 2003. And if you look at millennials today, they really love this concept, and this is going to stop things like the brain drain. It's going to make this community more interesting, and we got so many interesting things here already. But one of the things that's kind of unsung in our community is the fact that we're really pretty innovative, but we're really humble, and that humbleness really needs to be sort of broken down. And we need to sort of pat ourselves on the back more often because we have a lot of innovative ideas coming out, and this is just one. This will be a destination for people from around the world coming to see our aquaponics system, coming to see our fish hatchery, but coming to see the concept and how did you get this off the ground. So we're in the process of raising $3.4 million to get this thing up and running, and to help provide some funding for the first year of operations. After that, we won't need any more funding.
So you're actually looking at some events coming up. I want to make sure we don't forget about that. So there's an open house this Thursday, October 13th,
Right.
from 4 till 7, and it's at the Farmery.
It's at the Farmery, correct.
And that's your 1 year countdown. You're going to have some guest speakers there.
Right. Will Allen from Growing Power is going to be there. I'm going to be speaking, and we'll have a few other people. But we're also going to be showcasing a sort of a innovation center that's going to be upstairs in the eHub area, where they're starting a woman's entrepreneur initiative that's really pretty interesting. The interesting thing about aquaponics is, it's age and gender neutral. So anybody can do it, and so we have some real interesting partnerships. So the other event is going to be Saturday, October 15th, at the Gather on Broadway Street, and it's from 6 till 10, I believe.
And that's Gather and Graze, and you're partnering with Greenlight, which I think is a really interesting group that's come together. They stand for Positive Disruptive Change.
Right.
Which I think that's such a great little mantra.
Well, and I think it's something that I find very very exciting, because most of the people who start at Greenlight are what would be considered young professionals, but they don't like age to be a part of the definition of young professionals. They consider anybody who can be part of their work, as long as you're young in thought. And so I just retired. I'm 65, and they said I can join because I'm young in thought, and I love that idea. But I think the disruptive change is not meant to be negative. It's really meant to be positive. So we're going to be their first event, and when you think about the work that Farmery is focusing in on, it really is disruptive, and it's a little bit radical.
So this event, I want to just make sure the details are out there, that it is at Gather, which is down in the Broadway district, on October 15th from 6 to 10. It's $35 to enter. You get there's a cash bar, but you also get some. There's a Food Network chef coming in to do some culinary, artistic, exhibits, and you get to sample some food. Correct?
Right.
Every half hour.
Yeah, and it's food sampling. We'll have some of our greens. Our greens are something like you've never tasted before. They can be spicy or not, and so it's fun. But it's really meant to sort of bring all sorts of different types of people together and experience something that's kind of unified. And I think the Farmery concept, we're going to be talking about it for a few minutes, but it's really kind of bringing a lot of people together who want to make a project happen. We're going to be kicking off our crowdfunding app at that event, and we hope to engage everybody.
And the proceeds from that event go to the Farmery.
Right.
Okay.
And
that's a great event to have, or place, I should say, space to have that event. I was at a wedding there last weekend. It's a really beautiful building.
Yeah, good.
Really beautiful.
I've actually been there, but I'm looking forward to it.
So if there's anyone else out there that is interested, I know you need volunteers. There are definitely things, if people are interested in the Farmerie Project itself, they can get in touch with, where would be the best place to go to get in touch with someone to volunteer or to help with, whatever they're interested in helping with?
The best thing to do is go to our website, www.farmerie.org. And remember, it's Farmerie is spelled with an O, not an E. So that's FARMORY.org. And it can tell you a lot on there. We have a lot of volunteers. We could not get as far as we've gotten without the help of the volunteers. And the volunteers are very passionate. I mean, they're just awesome.
So you're really looking for some heavy-duty financial support right now.
Right.
And that's very important thing to have to move forward with this.
Right. If we don't, we're going to get the money. I'm committed to that, and I sort of retired a little prematurely. I was going to work a few more years, and I just decided that, this is more important than that.
Yeah, you don't strike me as a retirement type.
Yeah, I'm not.
So how do we get Republicans, for lack of a better term, like more engaged in this type of thing? How do you get some of these guys to show up for your event?
Well, I think the thing that we kind of have to put aside, it's interesting. When I was asked to be on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, the person who asked me was a Republican and very conservative individual. But the way he put it is, I don't always agree with you, but I like how you think. And I think if we could take this opportunity to say, you know what, we're not going to agree on everything, but we can agree that having healthy, nutritious food for our kids is really something that we want. Forget if we don't want it for ourselves, but let's at least have it for our kids and our grandkids and have a legacy about something we can be proud of. We can build together a system that I think that we can really be proud of. And I think people my age, legacy is really important.
And essentially, you're building a business incubator. This is not a democratic idea.
No,
This is really just a universal idea for communities, for people to come and invest in
He was
communities.
supposed to say that. That was the alley-oop shot.
That was it. Yeah, well, Rhonda, I think he said exactly what I wanted to say.
Okay.
No, but that's
You're welcome.
No, but that's
I tried to make it a softball. I'm sorry.
all right. but that is the case. I mean, this is a incubator accelerator. It is an entrepreneurial venture. That's why we're only growing produce to sustain ourselves. But what we really are doing is growing a community. We're growing a healthy community, and I think that's really
And quality of life issues are, these are really important to people. It's sometimes a deal breaker of why you stay in a community, why a business comes and invests in a community.
Right.
This will only benefit our community. And I'm so grateful that you're involved in this.
Thank you.
So thanks for coming on. We really appreciate all the information. Again, open house on Thursday night, October 13th, 4 to 7 at the Farmery. And then on October 15th from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m., Gather and Graze at Gather on Broadway. And the people can look up and find information on your website as well. So
Right.
thank you.
If you can't make it, go on the website and donate. We need the money. And,
Yes.
And when you donate, no matter how much it is, you'll be part of a movement. And I think part of a movement that's going to bring positive change to the greater Green Bay area. So thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So that wraps up Political Radar, episode number 42, The Answer to All Things, as our guest Paul mentioned. And I would like everybody that's listening to go find a pal and get them into our Political Radar Facebook group, our Political Radar community. I want more females and more minorities especially. And
Hello.
I would like, less of you and more of
Hey.
normal people. And really, I think that's important. Much like Paul said, the world isn't Democratic and Republican. It's people, and we need to have ideas and debate them and talk them through and make things awesome. So that's my short little pitch this time. And you can get in touch with me individually on Facebook. I'm Elliot C. on Facebook. I'm just Elliot on Twitter. And Rhonda's also on some places too. I don't know why
Facebook?
anybody would want to talk to her.
Oh, everybody wants to talk to me. You have no idea. Facebook and Twitter at Sit in a Cow.
And also, Paul, other than the farmery.org, or farmery.org, not the farmery.org, I should clarify, how would you like people to get in touch with you?
They can just contact me at paullinzmeyer@gmail.com.
paullinzmeyer@gmail.com. Awesome. And that's a wrap. You can get links, hopefully, to farmery.org. We're going to have a link in there, right? Yeah, awesome. I'm pointing at our excellent production staff our excellent production staff and Jacob.
Thanks, Jacob.
And that's it. We're out.
Thanks for listening to Political Radar. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. To stay up to date, visit politicalradar.com or connect with us on Facebook or Twitter.